The night was thick with silence, the kind that pressed against Officer Jake's ears and made every distant sound seem magnified. The rhythmic tap of his boots on the damp pavement echoed as he walked beside his partner, Rex, a 4-year-old German Shepherd K9, known throughout the department for his flawless obedience and unmatched instincts. Tonight's patrol was supposed to be routine, a simple sweep through a quiet residential neighborhood, but Jake couldn't shake the strange feeling that something was off. He adjusted his flashlight, letting the beam dance across parked cars and shadowed fences while Rex padded silently by his side, ears twitching, nose constantly working. Suddenly, Rex stopped mid-stride. His body went rigid, ears standing straight like radar dishes locked onto a signal. "What is it, boy?" Jake whispered, slowing his pace. He scanned the area but saw nothing unusual, just rows of silent houses and the distant hum of a highway. Rex sniffed the air sharply, his breath quick and shallow. Then, without warning, he bolted left, yanking the leash out of Jake's grip and darting into a narrow alleyway swallowed by shadows. "Rex, heel," Jake barked, his voice sharp and commanding, but Rex didn't listen. In the 3 years they'd partnered together, Rex had never disobeyed a single order, and now he was charging headlong into the unknown. Panic surged through Jake's chest as he sprinted after him, heart hammering like a drum. The flashlight beam trembled in his hand as he plunged into the alley, darkness closing in around him. He could hear Rex's claws scraping against the asphalt, his low growl reverberating off the brick walls. Something was happening, something Jake couldn't see yet, but Rex had sensed it, and every instinct screamed for him to trust his partner. As Jake rounded the corner, the damp, suffocating silence of the city shifted, replaced by muffled sounds he couldn't quite place, labored breathing, the scuffle of feet, and then something faint but chilling, a soft whimper like a child, trying to cry without being heard. The narrow alley smelled of oil and rust, littered with broken crates and discarded trash bags, but Jake barely noticed any of it. His flashlight cut through the darkness, finally landing on a sight that made his stomach twist. At the far end of the alley, a young boy, no older than 8, was pinned against a graffiti-stained wall by a tall man in a black hoodie. One of the man's hands was clamped over the boy's mouth, muffling his cries, while the other fished inside his pocket, where something metallic caught the faint glow of the flashlight. "Police, step away from the boy." Jake's voice thundered through the alley, his weapon drawn, hands steady despite the adrenaline surging in his veins. The man froze for a second, then pulled the boy closer, using him like a shield. "Stay back," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. The boy's terrified eyes glistened in the faint light, tears streaking his cheeks. That's when Rex moved, a blur of fur and muscle charging forward like lightning. The leash had slipped completely from Jake's grasp, but Rex didn't need commands now. He lunged at the stranger with precision born of relentless training, knocking the man off balance. The boy slipped free, stumbling into Jake's arms as Rex planted himself firmly between them and the stranger, his growl deep and guttural, vibrating in the cold night air. The man staggered backward, cursing, before reaching into his pocket again and pulling out a switchblade that glinted under the beam of Jake's flashlight. "Drop it now," Jake shouted, his voice sharp as steel, but the man didn't comply. In one explosive movement, Rex leaped again, this time clamping his powerful jaws around the man's wrist, forcing him to drop the knife with a metallic clang. The man screamed and tried to shake Rex off, but it was useless. Within seconds, Jake had tackled him to the ground, cuffing his wrists as backup sirens wailed faintly in the distance. The boy clung tightly to Jake's uniform, sobbing softly but safe. Rex, chest heaving and eyes blazing, stood guard over both of them, ready to attack again if needed. Jake glanced at his partner, awe and gratitude swelling in his chest. "Good boy, Rex. Good boy," he whispered, knowing that if Rex hadn't acted on instinct, things could have ended very differently tonight. By the time backup arrived, the alley was swarming with flashing lights and uniformed officers. The man, now restrained and bleeding from minor bites, was shoved into the back of a squad car while detectives questioned Jake about what happened. But the real shock came when one of them returned with a file. The stranger was a wanted fugitive, suspected of abducting 2 children from neighboring towns just months earlier. He had evaded capture twice, always disappearing into the city before authorities could catch him. Tonight, if Rex hadn't sensed him, another tragedy would have unfolded. Inside the station, the mood shifted from tense relief to quiet admiration. Officers gathered around Rex, patting his head, scratching behind his ears, calling him a hero. Even hardened detectives who rarely smiled couldn't hide their respect. Jake knelt beside Rex, giving him a gentle scratch under his chin. "You saved that boy, partner," he said softly, voice thick with emotion. Rex wagged his tail, leaning into Jake's hand, unaware of the lives he had just changed. Later, Jake sat across from the boy and his parents, who had rushed to the station as soon as they were contacted. The mother clutched her son tightly, tears streaming down her face, while the father shook Jake's hand again and again, his voice breaking with gratitude. "We thought we'd lost him," the father whispered. The boy, still pale but safe, crawled onto the floor beside Rex and hugged him tightly, burying his face into the dog's thick fur. Rex licked his cheek gently, as though comforting him. For the first time all night, Jake allowed himself to breathe deeply, the weight of what could have been slowly lifting off his shoulders. But beneath the relief, one thought lingered in his mind: what if he had forced Rex to heal? They would have walked right past that alley, unaware of the boy's silent cries for help, and the fugitive would still be out there hunting for his next victim. It was Rex's instincts, Rex's refusal to obey, that had saved the boy's life, and Jake knew from that moment forward he would always trust his partner's judgment, even above his own. The following morning, news crews camped outside the precinct, eager to cover the story of the canine who had disobeyed but ultimately saved the day. Headlines read, "Hero Dog Stops Child Abduction and Canine Rex, the Protector of Our City." Rex, of course, didn't understand the attention. To him, he'd simply done his job. But for the boy and his family, he was nothing short of an angel. The mayor even paid a visit, kneeling to scratch Rex's ears as reporters snapped photos. "This city is safer because of you," she said, smiling warmly. Despite the praise, Jake knew Rex didn't need recognition. All he wanted was a quiet moment on the training field, his favorite chew toy, and a pat on the head. That evening, Jake and Rex returned to their patrol route. The streets were calm now, the air lighter somehow, as they walked past the alley. Where it had all happened, Jake glanced down at his partner, who trotted happily beside him, tongue lolling, tail wagging. "You know, Rex," Jake murmured, "you didn't just save that boy. You saved me too. You reminded me why I do this." Rex barked softly, as though he understood. For Jake, the memory of that night would never fade: the fear, the rush, the relief, but most of all, the unshakable bond between a man and his dog. From then on, every time Rex pulled at the leash, Jake followed without hesitation. Because sometimes, heroes don't follow orders, they follow their hearts. And when that heart beats inside a loyal K9, miracles happen. Did Rex's bravery give you goosebumps? If you believe every K9 deserves to be celebrated, like this video and subscribe to K9 Era for more unbelievable, true K9 hero stories. Because every hero has 4 paws and a heart of gold.